Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into the life, the deeply rooted motivations, and the incredibly complex legacy of Subhas Chandra Bose. We're going to look at the hard historical facts to understand one of the absolute most polarizing figures of the 20th century.
Let's hit the main ethical friction right away. Because Bose's life, it forces us to ask a really profound question. Do the ends truly justify the means? Seriously, when your goal is liberating hundreds of millions of people from colonial rule, what alliances are actually acceptable?
His own words illustrate this mindset perfectly. Freedom is not given, it is taken. For Bose, taking absolute, uncompromising action against the British Raj at literally any cost, that was the anchor for every single dramatic, controversial choice he made throughout his life.
So part 1, the making of Netaji. Let's look at how he started. To understand a leader, we kind of have to look at the man himself. Born in 1897 in Cuttack, to a wealthy Bengali family, he received a very Anglo-centric education, but was deeply influenced by Indian culture at home. And his defiance started early. Back in 1916, while at Presidency College in Calcutta, he was expelled. The reason? Allegedly participating in beating up a British professor who had insulted Indian culture. So this early clash really set the stage.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is the number 4. After finishing his degree, his dad sent him off to England to take the elite Indian Civil Service exam. Bose placed fourth. He had this incredibly lucrative, prestigious career just handed to him. But in 1921, he completely shocked his family and resigned before the final exam. He believed that serving the colonial administration was a total betrayal of his country. So he packed up and sailed right back to India.
Moving on to Section 2, the rift with Gandhi. As Bose rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the mayor of Calcutta and then president of the Indian National Congress in 1938, a massive ideological fracture opened up. You see, Gandhi favored peaceful, nonviolent mass resistance. Bose, on the flip side, demanded complete and immediate independence, and he was willing to use militant force to get it. Plus, after touring Europe, Bose started to believe that an independent India would actually need a period of socialist authoritarianism. That obviously clashed hard with Gandhi's democratic ideals.
So, this relationship quickly became completely untenable. Even though he was re-elected as Congress president in 1939, political maneuvering by Gandhi's supporters essentially forced Bose to resign. But Bose was unfazed. He just founded his own faction, the All India Forward Bloc, to unite forces committed to absolute independence. Naturally, the British authorities viewed this as a huge threat. When World War II broke out, they didn't hesitate. They completely suppressed his activities and threw him under strict house arrest.
Which brings us to Section 3, Alliances with the Axis.
Okay, this is where we enter Bose's most historically debated chapter, his stunning decision to seek out the enemies of the British Empire. His 1941 escape from British surveillance literally reads like a spy thriller. First, he disguises himself as a Pathan insurance agent to dodge officers. Then, he flees across the border into Afghanistan, pretending to be deaf and mute. After that, he travels all the way through Moscow using a fake Italian passport. Finally, in April 1941, he arrives in Nazi Germany looking for their help to overthrow the British. Once he touched down in Berlin, he secured German funding to build an anti-British resistance. He was attached to the Special Bureau for India, founded the Free India Center, and created the Indian Legion. He managed to recruit around 3,000 Indian prisoners of war who'd been captured by Axis forces in North Africa and convinced them to switch sides. He also started broadcasting revolutionary messages back home via the German-sponsored Azad Hind radio. And fun fact, this is actually where the honorific Netaji, meaning respected leader, was first used for him.
But looking objectively at the historical record, we have to acknowledge that these alliances present some serious ethical dilemmas. Members of his Indian Legion literally swore an oath of obedience to Adolf Hitler alongside Bose. Bose even envisioned an invasion of India spearheaded by Nazi troops. His absolute, laser focus on Indian freedom meant he displayed a stark reluctance to publicly criticize the horrific anti-Semitic atrocities of the Nazi regime he was collaborating with. For him, the enemy of his enemy was his friend. Period, regardless of their ideology.
Ultimately, though, that alliance with Germany faltered. He grew disillusioned with Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union, a country Bose actually admired, and he realized the German army was too bogged down to help him invade India. So he decided to pivot and seek Japanese support instead. In early 1943, he boarded a German U-boat, and what happens next is just incredible. Off the coast of Madagascar, he pulled off a daring mid-ocean transfer to a Japanese submarine. To this day, it remains the only known civilian transfer between two submarines of two different navies during the entirety of World War II.
That kicks off Section 4, the final campaign.
Disembarking in Japanese-held Sumatra in May 1943, Bose was finally positioned in Southeast Asia. When he took control of the Indian independence movement out there, he injected this massive, electrifying energy into the expatriate Indian population. This is when he delivered his most iconic rally cry, "Give me blood and I will give you freedom." Thousands answered that call. They offered up their wealth and their lives for his cause.
Backed by the Japanese, he completely revamped the Indian National Army, the INA. He recruited tons of Indian POWs captured during the fall of Singapore. By October 1943, he boldly proclaimed the Provisional Government of Free India. But get this, he wasn't just building an army. He was actively constructing a progressive vision of India. He promoted unity across Hindu, Muslim, and Sikh lines, and he established the Rani of Jhansi Regiment. That was an all-women combat unit, which was a massively revolutionary step for gender equality in that region.
However, despite his extreme charisma and the fierce dedication of his troops, the military reality on the ground was pretty devastating. The Japanese commanders actually considered Bose to be somewhat militarily unskilled. When the joint Japanese and INA forces attacked the Indian border in late 1944 and early 1945, the British Indian Army decisively pushed them back. The campaign was a disaster. His forces suffered massive casualties. Literally half of the participating INA contingent was killed. The remaining troops were driven back down the Malay Peninsula, and eventually they were forced to surrender.
Let's wrap up with Section 5, a complex divided legacy.
Following that military collapse, Bose attempted to escape to Manchuria to seek asylum in the Soviet Union. Now, according to accepted historical accounts, on August 18, 1945, his overloaded plane crashed in Taiwan, and Bose died from third-degree burns. But the political shockwaves? They were just getting started. Post-1945, the British Raj tried to charge 300 INA officers with treason. But they faced such massive unified public opposition that the British actually had to backtrack. It was an outrage that severely shook British confidence and undoubtedly accelerated India's decolonization.
For decades now, his legacy has remained that of a fierce, uncompromising patriot. Millions of Indians outright rejected the news of his death in 1945. It spawned countless theories, with people literally waiting for the return of their Netaji. His saga really matters because it stands as this enduring militant counterpoise to the peaceful negotiations and civil disobedience that officially won India's independence. It deeply complicates the narrative of how freedom is actually won.
As we conclude this explainer, we want to leave you with the ultimate historical friction to ponder. We've seen his unyielding dedication to his country, his progressive social ideals, and the undeniable role his army played in shaking the absolute foundations of the British Empire. But we've also seen his highly transactional embrace of brutal fascist regimes to achieve those goals. So, how should history judge a man who allied with fascists to fight imperialists? It's a complex question about a deeply compromised, extraordinary, and defiant life. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.